Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Music Reviewer Podcast. My name's Josh, and thanks for tuning in today. Another Best and Worst track of the week. This week is the week of August 29th. And if you're new to Best and Worst track of the week, or just the Music Reviewer in general, thanks for tuning in. The Music Reviewer is just a podcast where I just talk about music because I listen to a lot of it, and I just like talking about it. But basically, if this is your first time listening to Best and Worst Track of the Week, all I do is just take the new entries into the Billboard Hot 100, give them a letter grade, pick one that's the worst, pick one that's the best. And before we just get started, I just want to let everyone know the last episode was over the latest Luke Bryan album titled Born Here, Live Here, Die Here. His 10th album, a country album that I was just indifferent to. It had some highs and it had lows. But if you're interested in country music at all, if Luke Bryan strikes your interest, or if you just are interested in hearing me babble about country music for about 20 minutes, go ahead and check that out. But yeah, let's get started. So this week on the Billboard Hot 100, it was somewhat tame. I'd say everything that came in and everything happened was somewhat organic. As usual, we had a reggaeton song. We also had some trap songs from, some innocuous artists in the trap genre. Probably getting here through streaming. I'm not sure if much of it was too stand out. There was a great track that is the best track of the week we'll get to. And then also an artist that I felt was a little uncharacteristic of the Billboard Hot 100. But nonetheless, just some highlights overall. WAP is still at number 1. I think that was as expected. Savage Love by Josh685 and Jason Derulo is finally going down, although not much. It seems like it might be losing the upward trajectory that I was scared it would have. And then Mood by 24kGoldn and Ian Dior, although I didn't really give it best track of the week last week, went up to 58 spots at 26. I feel like this is something that is gaining momentum and possibly could enter the top 10 eventually. And then Be Like That by Kane Brown, Sway Lee, and Khalid, one of our worst tracks of the week, is down to 30, or still going up to 34, sorry. So that, the general consensus on that is opposite of mine. AJR Bangs finally stayed put. It is no longer going up, or at least not this week. But yeah, I was a little interested in that because AJR being a kind of a alternative, kind of like not too mainstream band that has a younger audience. I was interested if it was actually going pretty mainstream, but there's some rumors that they're breaking up anyways. And then another highlight is that a lot of the Pop Smoke stuff is still lingering around and even going up. So I'm wondering if that Pop Smoke is just going to be around for the rest of the year. But yeah, nonetheless, let's just get into it. We had the first new track, new entry is Lonely As You Are by Chase Rice, coming in at 100. This track, I guess, was the typical country track that comes in every week, or the expected one. So Chase Rice is kind of an interesting person in the country music scene. He's listed as a country singer, songwriter, and reality TV personality. I'm not sure why that would be for the reality TV, but it seems like he has an interesting background. He's actually the one responsible for writing Cruise, which was one of the things that ignited Bro Country. Cruise being the track by Florida Georgia Line, and that kind of kind of igniting their careers as well. And he's kind of just been in this bro country scene since then. So he's at this point he is kind of a relic in the country music scene as well. I guess him being of the bro country peak and climax of it, and being partly responsible. But he's still around. All I have to say about this track really is that compositionally it sounds like Sam Hunt. Uh, Honestly, if I didn't know, if I was just listening to this on the radio and it came on, I would think it's a Sam Hunt song. It is a pretty friendly country radio, so it's obviously meant to try to climb those charts on the country charts. The percussion track on this track sounds very mechanical and robotic. It's really awful when it comes in. I'd say this track also kind of goes for this Kane Brown aesthetic, this sanitary, mid-tempo and breezy, aesthetic that Kane Brown has. Overall, I thought it was pretty average. I gave it a C. And next we have Caramelo by Ozuna coming in at 92. Ozuna, in my opinion, is kind of one of the better new school reggaeton acts, and he's obviously had his time in the limelight. He was on Debote, that super hit from 2018. He sang, I think, the hook, and he's had some good success on his own, with a lot of tracks off of his last album becoming hits in the Latin pop world. This track, Caramelo, it has a clean guitar passage in the intro, and it's kind of borrowing from like the emo trap sound as well. This is a running theme in this week. Lots of emo trap, or just trap in general, with clean guitar tones in every song. It's getting a little stale, but nonetheless, this is a reggaeton track. There's a typical reggaeton percussion track on it. The doubled harmonized vocal line sounds pretty decent and cool when it happens in the track. The clean guitar instrumentation just kind of stays throughout the track. At some point, the track just becomes a little drawn out, and after a certain point, and it's kind of like a trance. Not much development, maybe a little bit bare after a certain point. But I like the fact that Ozuna's on this track, solely just him, and there's no features, and he's not really collaborating with anyone. I like that he's able to put out a song that's just him by himself and do it himself, which I think is a strong suit of him in general. He seems to pride himself in just releasing material without features. I'd say a lot of reggaeton artists should probably follow his lead on that, especially if they want to stand out. But nonetheless, I give that a C+. Next track was 24, featuring Lil Baby by Moneyman. I didn't know who Moneyman was. I did some research. He's from Atlanta. He's been in the trap game. Of course, being from Atlanta, that makes sense. But upon watching, an episode of Billboard Breakdown by Mark Rodden right now, I guess this dude puts out a mixtape every other month. So he's doing whatever he can to stay relevant. I guess he's had some commercial success in the past, but nonetheless, nothing that caught my attention, and I'd say there's a good reason for it. This is kind of derivative and an uninspiring trap song. There's the clean guitar instrumentation in the intro. Honestly, he just sounds like Gunna, with all the vocal delivery, he does, and the flow, and it also sounding like Travis Scott or Nav, with the use of the auto-tune soaked vocal tone. It's so static. There's no change in it, in the flow or the delivery. The words sound slurred together. I'd just say he's the weak link in this track, because when Lil Baby comes in, it saves the track. He sounds way ahead of Moneyman and I guess everything in terms of delivery, flow. Even though Lil Baby does borrow the same flow, he does it, he executes it much better. He's more enthusiastic in it. I'd say this track was pretty forgettable, but I gave it a C, solely because Lil Baby's on here and he did a decent job. The next track is Lemonade, by Internet Money, Gunna, featuring Don Toliver and Nav. Another similar situation here. I had no idea who Internet Money is, but to my surprise, it's not just one sole artist. It's kind of a collective of producers and songwriters and people just, I guess, trying to capitalize on trap at the moment. But I guess there's one mastermind behind it, Taz Taylor, who's a record producer. Nonetheless, though, this is more somewhat derivative trap. I'd say though that it's I do like that Don Toliver and Nav is on here. I don't know if I've really talked about Nav or Don Toliver. Nav is a unique character in rap. He's a little quirky. He kind of just follows his own beat, and when it comes to how he approaches his style, a lot of people think it's terrible. Sometimes I think it's a little catchy and earwormy. I'm not saying he's necessarily the next, great trap artist or Kendrick Lamar. Nonetheless, this track features a clean guitar instrumentation that structures the song. It sounds sampled at some points. I'm wondering if that's true. It doesn't sound original to the track, but anyways, it also features this buzzy and dirty bass line. The parts that Nav sings on seem a tad more mature and developed compared to his typical, antics. Don Toliver's vocal tune, the sung part that he has is interesting. His performance is somewhat present and it's nicely performed. I think he did a pretty good job. It's a kind of a somber tune in general. I would say the Gunna part is probably one of the more forgettable parts on here, though, with Don Toliver stealing the show and I guess Nav giving some dynamics to it. And I don't know if it really hits the intended purpose of this being a somber or sad tune. I thought it was just slightly above average. I guess I gave it a C+. The next track, Casey Talk, by YoungBoy, Never Broke Again, coming in at 58. Another trap song by, I think, another innocuous trap rapper. More clean guitar instrumentation. What a surprise in the instrumentation. This time it sounds sampled and warped, kind of sounding like a Eastern Asian instrument. I don't know the name of the specific one I'm thinking of, but they kind of manipulate the tone on it. The hi-hats sound chirpy at times. It sounds a little unconventional. It's just an interesting thing on here. I think there's some dynamics here, especially like when the verses have the muted effect on the instrumental. He kind of uses the singing rap style the entire track, but in my opinion, it's just pretty derivative and uninteresting for most of the track. I mean, there's really nothing I took away from this song. But yeah, I gave this a C. The next track is by another country artist, but I'd say this is a little bit more interesting than the Chase Rice song. This is 7 Summers by Morgan Wallen, debuting all the way at number 6. This has a breezy and light mood to it. There's a subdued guitar riff and a somewhat tropical nature as well. Kind of like a Thomas Rhett song. And then it has nice organ tones thrown in to provide richer texture throughout the track. It has a nice message about reminiscing about a past love. I like that I'm able to hear a lot of the instrumentation and the production, especially in the mids with that acoustic guitar. It's not bad. I give it a B. I thought this was decent. The next track, it debuted all the way at number 2. This was Laugh Now, Cry Later by Drake featuring Lil Durk. I felt like this track was just a little bit different compared to the stuff Drake has been doing lately. It's kind of a throwback to his earlier music, especially with those cheap synth horns from the 2000s. I love it in the track, especially when the drum track comes in. It just kind of comes in with energy. It's kind of a shit-talking track. Lil Durk sounds more high-pitched in his delivery, kind of like Young Thug. In my opinion, he wasn't needed in this track. I felt like he could have been substituted for anyone else. Drake's flow and delivery develops throughout the track. It's not bad. It's one of his better tracks of the year. I give it a B. And we are to the point where we are now going to talk about the worst track of the week. We'll start with that, end on a good note, and talk about the best track. But the worst track of the week was Heather by Conan Gray, coming in at 61. This is the artist that I was mentioning earlier that I felt was a little uncharacteristic of the Billboard Hot 100. Due to Conan Gray's brand kind of being like this bedroom pop, but not really bedroom pop, kind of just like new age social media artist that got to start, posting music on social media and vlogging, which there's nothing wrong with that. But this he's from Georgetown, which is in Austin, or just up the road from Austin. So I thought, I didn't know that about him. That's pretty cool. But I think I remember even discovering him on YouTube not too long ago, not realizing he was just about to blow up. But unfortunately, this track is I don't know. This track just bothered me. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but I guess just when it opens up with that acoustic guitar sound, it sounds a little cheap and amateurly performed, and maybe a little overly compressed. I feel like those accented parts on that guitar, it's panned with like another guitar, I think, but it just does not have a great start. The track just does not have a great start with this acoustic guitar coming in. The voice sounds too breathy and overbearing as well. Nice tone and performance, at least when he sings most of the time. But this song kind of just also reminds me of, they took the idea of The Only Exception by Paramore, especially maybe the chord progression and the guitar style. The Only Exception is a lot more thought out and better produced, in my opinion, but nonetheless, the track isn't, awful, like to the point where it's like Savage Love by Jason Derulo bad. There's some nice harmonizations at some point, but when the chorus comes in, there's little to no payoff, and the song's objective is to be this emotionally, cathartic song. It's about, I don't know if this is a song that touches on homosexuality or something of that nature, but I think it's about wanting someone else's man or being jealous of a female named Heather. The more emotional and oversung parts in the lines, like the more emotional and oversung vocal lines that are belty, don't sound very good, and then you can even tell when they kind of bury it in the mix. Especially the production just continues this cheap trend, especially when the percussion comes in, and overall there's just like a dated aesthetic to this song. I just can't really put my finger on it why it's bad, but I just don't see why this is gaining traction. I mean, if you want to hear some singer-songwriter stuff with some emotion and I guess organic instrumentation, there's a lot of other things you can listen to. But yeah, I gave this worst track of the week. And then we'll transition to Midnight Sky by Miley Cyrus, that came in at 14. This track surprised the fuck out of me. This is the best track of the week. I like the nice eerie synth tones in the intro. I'd say the percussion is a little too knocky and dry, but it's forgiven, especially when the song just continues to go. It's kind of like a racehorse just taking off after that shot's fired. It keeps on delivering, and it goes and goes. This track has that kind of kind of nature to it. It's a dancey pop style, maybe some 80s synth wave, and there's some grit. At times her voice is maybe a little bit too raspy, but I like it because at least she's present and she gave it her all. The track has a nice groove. The bass lines sound great at times. Maybe some Stevie Nicks type, stylistic choices made in here that Miley did. If she can pull off something like this that's consistent on an album, I wouldn't see why she can't revamp her career and, be at the top again. But yeah, best track of the week goes to Miley Cyrus, and worst to Conan Gray. But if you stuck around this long, thanks for joining me on the Music Reviewer Podcast. My name's Josh, and take care of yourselves.